Social media has added a brand new dimension to our lives. Back in the day, only a few people had a platform where they could publicly share. But with the boom of social media, it seems that we can all now share, not only with the people around us, but with the entire world. But where is the line of what's healthy for us to share and what's healthy for us to keep private? Who establishes that line to begin with? And what are the possible effects, both positive and negative, of the culture of social media sharing? In this episode, I'm going to explore the effects of revealing and sharing publicly with a bunch of strangers certain things about our lives that are considered intimate, and why this is such a tricky thing to navigate. My name is Silvana. I'm a course creator and the founder of the Venusian Academy, space for the exploration of the divine feminine arts and Chakra Tantra. If you'd like to join the Academy and see my current offerings, please check the description box below. So let's start with an exploration of first, like, why is it that I'm saying that sharing intimate things about your life with a bunch of strangers can be energetically damaging? This all started with the reality TV culture that was probably pioneered by Kim Kardashian's infamous sex tape. This then developed into the reality TV thing where there's all these shows being created about people's intimate lives, their sexual lives, what goes on behind closed door, putting that on a public platform, and just the grasp and the power that had. So why is it? Why was it that people got so caught up into this energy of like needing to know or wanting to know other people's lives and creating an entire economy around that? Besides the obvious, right? It's like whenever you look at somebody's crazy dynamic, there's a dopamine hit telling you like, oh my God, things are better for me, or I wish I had that. And then pulling all these emotions of either jealousy or envy or relief because things are not as bad for me. That's like the surface level. But all of these themes are connected to the eighth house. So in Vedic astrology, the eighth house is a very reflective place. It is also an exploratory house because this is the realm of Scorpio, the energy of Scorpio. Scorpio is the deep, still, and dark water. And all the themes related to like that scorpionic eighth house energy bring up points and parts of our life where the depth of human nature that is expressed through that house meets with the divinity of that darkness. So it's one of those places where you go like deep and dark, and somewhere in that depth you find divinity within. In order for this process to take place, you need to respect the depth and the darkness and the energetic movement of these processes. So it's also a house of processes, deep psychological processes. Everything that is taboo is the house of shadow work, the house of sexuality, the house of intimacy, tantra, house of psychedelics, the house of longevity, therefore also the house of death and how we deal with death, the house of our deep psychological issues, the house of the menstrual cycle, the house of childbirth, and the house where we face all the aspects of ourselves that we reject. The eighth house is the house that prepares you for the 12th house of liberation. So in order to prepare for the process of liberation, there is a cleansing that needs to happen. Ketu is the co-ruler of this house as well. And Ketu is also about liberation, about excretion, about separating life from the dead body and what happens in the decomposition process of this dead body. Everything related to that house needs that the privacy of the darkness, the inner darkness, the reflective qualities. So when you are sharing publicly to a bunch of strangers, people that you don't know, things about your intimacy, sexuality, and your own private life, you are becoming susceptible to the energetics attacks because this house is also a water-based house. And with the water houses, you have to think of what could pollute that water. Now, energetically, there's so much going on because these subjects related to the eighth house are so taboo in our society still to this day that whenever I present to you an idea that's taboo, it can feel confrontational, right? And whenever I'm confronted, Most individuals on this planet, they're not going like, oh wow, like I'm feeling this trigger and it must be this part of myself. No, they're immediately bouncing back whatever they didn't feel and acknowledging themselves, whatever got triggered, they're immediately sharing, like bouncing it back at the person that triggered it to begin with. So to receive constant energetic attacks because I am revealing something that is true about my life related to the realms of the eighth house is to constantly be receiving dirt into your water, into the waters of the intimacy of the eighth house. This can have virtually no visible effect. You can not notice it, but unfortunately for people that are very energetically sensitive, they will definitely start feeling this. And if children are involved, like children are particularly susceptible to these energetic attacks. So we have to also keep this in mind. Now, with the subjects of the eighth house, because they are taboo in nature, right? And they are triggering other people. And then most people are like sending that energy back as a energetic like projection attack into the source that triggered it. In that process, there is no energetic containment. Because usually whenever you do this, like the best way to interpret the movements of this house is to like look at a ceremony, right? Whenever you have a plant medicine ceremony, you have a circle, a space that is protected and contained. The intention of all the individuals involved. Everybody's choosing to go through this experiencing, revealing themselves. It is an opportunity to like let the shadows be open, but I know that everybody in there is also in the same process. Therefore, we're all safe and we're all gonna not judge ourselves and not try to project things. Of course, that always happens, but like that's the intention, right? And that intention is protective of its own. But whenever I'm showing this online on the internet, I don't know who's on the other side of it. And I don't know what energies I'm aggravated in them because I don't know what they're dealing with. I don't know what are their shadows, what are the parts of themselves they're hiding. I don't know what traumas they carry and the power that they might have, because if these are like ancestral traumas that no one has dealt with, and then somehow they get poked and triggered by you revealing things of the eighth house out into the world, you don't know who's receiving that, and that person feels this strong surge of emotion and then they project it back to you. That is an energetic attack. And if it's something that's happening live in your life, if it's like a healing process that you're going through, you're already in a very susceptible, vulnerable space. And what happens energetically with that is like whenever we're receiving these attacks, like we all have our natural protection mechanisms, like we're protected, everything's well. But then there's another element to it. And we have astral bodies that we don't necessarily understand. We can take care of ourselves here in the third dimension because our minds are meant to operate here, but there's this other reality that we live in. There's the astral world, and that's the world that you experience and work on whenever you are, for example, in plant medicine ceremonies. This is the space in which Tantra is happening. It's all happening in the subtle body, not necessarily it doesn't begin in like the physical body, even though it can have an effect because they're all connected. We're dealing with like astral work. And when you make yourself open to that, you can attract like energetic astra larva, which you can see in a lot of plant healing ceremonies when people are purging. They're like almost like purifying these energetic parasites around their field. So because this is invisible, we think it's like not a big deal, nothing happens, especially if we're receiving some form of approval by being labeled as inspirational, brave, courageous, right? Like that's kind of like the way in which the mind gets its little hit of safety in doing these very vulnerable things, but we're not really aware of what's going on at the energetic level. So the eighth house needs containment because it is a place of purification of the animal nature, purification of this reality, and the merging point from the animal nature into the spiritual nature. This process needs containment. And especially now with the amount of polarization that is happening in the world, it's very easy to see that people are like their own emotional bodies are right here ready to be felt. And we human beings, we're not used to this. So there is this constant attacking of the other, attacking whoever triggered me. So that's why there are certain things that are meant to stay private. The sacred is meant to stay private. And if you have a desire to share it and open up, begin one person at a time. Social media creates this thing where like I'm over here and I'm putting this thing about my life for the world to see, but I have no idea who's receiving that. And this is amazing if we're talking business, if we're talking about populating ideas and beginning movements, because it doesn't really matter. But whenever I'm revealing something that's so deeply sacred to me and my inner child, and I'm basically exposing myself energetically in that way, I'm actually creating self-harm in that process. So now that we understand why these things are meant to stay private, what can you do to protect yourself if at some point you have fallen into the oversharing trap? Number one line of defense is boundaries. What do you share and who do you share it with? What are the spaces in which you are sharing? What's the place where this desire to share is really coming from? Is there another way that I can share the essence of this message without exploiting my intimate private processes? And if you're sharing, are you equipped to receive the energetic backlashes? Are you maybe unconsciously exposing other people around you? And are you respecting the boundaries of their inner child? Asking ourselves these questions are the most effective line of defense because we are susceptible to the things that we don't see in ourselves and in life. So at the very least, these questions help you analyze, okay, like where do I personally draw the line? Because the line is not going to be drawn for you. There's no set rules of like what's acceptable and what's unacceptable. We all have our own unique journeys. There are some individuals that are here to share some really deep messages. And it is their own job to construct the boundary between what's me and what's the message, what's the mission and what's intimate. We don't live in a world where we can like walk outside naked, reveal our heart and our vulnerability and expect to be received with love. That's just not the planet that we live on right now. And part of healing the father wound is developing discernment. Enough discernment to protect myself from myself. Enough discernment to protect myself from danger, whether it's coming from the outside or also coming from inside. You see, and that's the importance of working on these developmental wounds, because sometimes we heal the mother wound and then there's all this love and wholeness that we feel. But if we have not healed the father wound, our boundaries are leaky energetically and physically. And we are making ourselves susceptible and we actually are unconsciously exploiting the sacred of our life for the sake of what? Of money, of recognition, of what? So these are all good questions to begin the exploration. For example, let's say that you have a personal brand, like your name is your brand. Did you really create a brand or did you market your life as a business strategy? Are you respecting the sanctity and the sacredness of your own life, of your own process of becoming and blooming? Or every time you grow, you use that and exploit it out into the ether of the internet? Because these questions, as hard as they are to ask ourselves, they actually will help us begin creating those boundaries to separate myself from my work, myself from my message. Oftentimes, we might share very intimate things with the desire of being received with love and with comprehension and with celebration and to be perceived as the self-aware person. And maybe you do get that hit of recognition that you were looking for. But remember, like, what are you doing to your innocence? What are you doing to your inner child? Are you protecting you from you? A lot of these transformative processes that we go through, they are processes of our inner child. So are you selling her processes, his processes, for money, recognition, or popularity? Does your own innocence feel safe with you? Or does it feel like it has been put naked in the middle of a public plaza? For as long as we see ourselves as like, no, it's just me and others, we won't really honor the totality of what we are. But whenever we begin seeing ourselves as a combination of multiple parts, certain parts that are like right here in hand with the adult and certain parts that are deeply innocent and sensitive, we're able to create a life in a way that feels safe for the whole, not a life that is just convenient for certain parts of ourselves. And this is part of the process of wholeness. We all have different sensitivity levels, especially sensitivity to energy, sensitivities to the astral plane. Some people are like rocks. They just feel hungry and cold and hot and thirsty, and that's it. And then there are other people that live in both worlds and they're like, I'm feeling something, I don't know what, but it's something. And if you have this natural sensitivity, practice discernment with what you're allowing the world to see. And learn to cultivate respectful privacy with the parts of your life that are sacred. You don't have to exploit your depth, your sexuality, your healing processes in order to be authentic or in order to have an impact in the world. We are so creative. We can find so many ways of delivering a message, so many ways of expressing ourselves. So don't be lazy with it. Don't just, reveal it all. Find ways of making art that express the depth of your 8-house processes. Respect the depth of your sexuality, your healing, your intimacy, your tantric work, your plant medicine work. Make art. Take that as inspiration to make art and use that art as a means to face the world. That creative process of art creates a little bit of separation from the depth of your intimacy with the public. And it forces you to really explore that part of your life, the sacred, the private. So if you heard everything that I said here today and you're like, oh my God, I've done that. Now what? Am I exposed? I think this is a great time to begin practicing some light magic, create protection rituals for yourself, do a lot of forgiveness exercises. We're all doing the best that we can. We're learning one day at a time. So there are many ways of protecting ourselves energetically. You can just go on YouTube and then find whatever, amount of rituals, practices, exercises that you can do to create that psychic protection. The important thing is to remember is that you don't need to show the world everything about yourself in order to have a strong impact. You can change lives by simply honoring and respecting your sacredness and letting that be the biggest lesson that you share with others. If you like this episode, please make sure to subscribe and like. And if you would like some guidance on healing the father wound to develop more discernment, please check out my course, Venusian Woman, because we dedicate one pillar out of the three pillars to healing the father wound, creating an empowered, healthy identity, and developing more discernment and safety. And with that, I leave you guys. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.